in India specifically, we don't know how to give feedback. A lot of times people say, oh, we have to respond to writers with brutal honesty. I think they focus on the brutality bit a little bit more. Like I remember writing this first film in 2013-14 and sending it to a senior who's like a well-respected writer right now. And he just sent a couple of lines of feedback that, and I was like, why would you say that? And I was considering should I pursue this as a career? So when you're starting out, you kind of mimic the voices of the writers that you like. This was something like this was done in Seinfeld. Yeah, your friends wala. So these will work. And then you see audience laughing at all those jokes, and then suddenly your joke comes and people laugh the loudest, and you realize, oh, is this working? One of the things that we were kind of struggling with, and you're writing a pandemic show while the pandemic is going, and second wave ho raha tha. While we are doing stuff like this, actually family mein there were deaths happening. So we actually abandoned for 1.5 months, and now in the edit, what the editor did, he showed it to us and said ki maine kuch kiya hai dekho. He was like ki something magical happened in that, and I remember my wife watching it and she was like, mar gayi kya? So first of all, let me tell you, you might have written the script, but this is my script.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Voice podcast. Today we have Mr. Biswapati Sarkar, whom we all recognize as Mr. Arnab. Today he joins us to share his journey from making notable shows like Permanent Roommates and Pictures for TVF on YouTube to most recently making Netflix's Kaala Paani. Young writers out there, please watch out for all the insights that this gentleman has to offer. We hope you enjoy the show.
I think you are one of those few people who are the pioneers of digital content and web series that as it exists today. And you are essentially a new age writer, so to speak, who grew up in a world which was very different from a writer who was trying to say break into the long form space by assisting and doing other things.
Correct.
You had a company that was pretty much vertically integrated. You had your own distribution and you produced your own content. And if I were to just take a guess, you started by doing DIY projects and then you built on the brand, got sponsorships and scaled up from there, right?
Yeah.
And now here you are today in 2024. You have your own company, Posham Pa Pictures. You have had several projects which are great successes, and most recently Kaala Paani, which is one of my favorite shows again. And now you're working on the second season. A lot to unravel in this conversation. I would love to start with a very specific question. You have seen a world where whatever you made, you got instant feedback, right? Whether it's through comments, whether it's through YouTube insights, right? And now you are running a production company where you're creating content that you're making shows and films that take about a few years sometimes to just get off the ground and, see what it looks like finally, let alone having a, very transparent perspective on how the show has performed in terms of engagement and not having an insight into exact comments what people are saying. Can we talk about the before and after?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for saying all those kind things. Thank you for saying that, Neil. So I think it has been a gradual transformation. The first thing, like instant feedback, and especially in the times where we were operating, the internet was also fairly new. So people actually gave very good feedback. 2012 to 2014, and especially sketches, because we were kind of making, not in the absolutely early days, but like 2013-14, we started doing like one sketch a couple of weeks at least. So if the idea came to me today, next to next week it will be out and I'll get instant feedback. So that instant feedback really helped shape कि ये work कर रहा है, ये नहीं कर रहा है, avoid doing this. Yeah, okay, this was low hanging. This joke was pretty low hanging. Let's do better stuff next time. So all of that, you get to learn fairly early. Of course, then the whole thing, like when you're doing a show, it takes like a month and a half to do one episode initially. And a lot of times, like Permanent Roommates, we were doing 1 or 2 episodes, we were writing, shooting, and then putting it up.
Got it.
So by the time I was writing the third episode, 2 episodes had already come out. So I knew that this joke or this thing that Mikesh says school is working, so probably I'll include that.
So this is like a very TV way of operating, right? Like
Yes, TV way, but not every week of that
Yeah.
pressure of that timeline was not there
Yeah.
initially. Then of course this I felt that वो थोड़े withdrawal symptoms type feel होता है कि हाँ मतलब I'm doing this but I'll get a feedback for this. मतलब एक तो I'll end up writing it, then probably some actor will come on board, it'll take 6 months to prep, then we'll shoot and we'll do it. So that basically the finish line started moving ahead further and further, and then after a point, but I think like it took me about a year and a half, but then I realized that okay, this is how it is. And what helps really is there are a lot of people in your circle who you absolutely trust and who replace the audience wala feedback. And of course I'll also sorry I missed this one point, 2015-16 onwards I also realized that the audience feedback also became very bekar, if I can use that word, because a lot of people would just come in because the comment section became like people would fight amongst themselves, which is like you go to a YouTube video, very few people talk about that thing objectively, like barring the top 2-3 comments, everything else is like, oh I love you, oh or I hate you. So it's just that, oh we love, so TVF, oh TVF is the best, oh okay yeah, and or otherwise ki not up to TVF standards or something like that. So those were the kind of primarily comments
very polarizing
polarizing comments, and then very few people. So I think then automatically you rely on those people that you respect or those collaborators that you work with कि वो लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं. And then I think that feedback continues to be there even today. Like even when we finish a script, we call in a bunch of friends who are not directly emotionally attached to us, who can give brutal feedback. And mostly these are people not from the industry.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we do a good job with the narration, so ऐसा भी नहीं होता कि they don't understand what is happening. And they give very, very objective feedback at times कि हाँ ये चीज़ नहीं या ये, and a lot of times they give you solutions also, but they also don't know कि ये solution बेकार है. So what you can but definitely figure out is this a problem, like what the problem is. And as the writer often you feel that I don't know if this part is working, if this scene, does it feel ki he loves her? Yeah, you have very specific questions about this that you can ask them, and they'll give you like fairly direct answers ki this we never felt this was a problem. So that all of that we keep doing at every stage. So after narration, once the episode is ready, like once we have a cut ready, a presentable cut, we again call in a few friends of friends and they look at it. And again, like we have like a young guy who works in our office, and he's now out of friends because every other week he calls his friends over. So because we don't have anybody in that age group,
Got it.
like people who are in their 20s and all, which is also important, like which is a huge section of the audience. So yeah, that's how you get the feedback, and that's how you kind of navigate around that YouTube wala feedback which used to exist.
I understand. So, in terms of, okay, you've explained how you take feedback now proactively, which is great. In terms of being a writer, it's almost like if I were to just draw a quick comparison, there are so many writers in the West who do SNL where they are putting out sketches week on week basis.
Correct.
And then they move to long form, right? So it kind of trains their mind to, okay, I have only these many days to put in a draft and this is what it is, whether it works or not, right? And then you move on.
Correct.
So it gives that, creates that strong muscle for them to keep, churning out drafts. What I've been always eager to understand when you're writing one draft after the other or one scene after the other, at what point do you know that this works and how do you gauge that?
So initially you don't, when you are starting out you don't know. So you have to rely on other people's feedbacks, and a lot of times what also happens is that in India specifically, we don't know how to give feedback. Like even the professionals who are working, like I remember writing this first film in 2013-14 and sending it to a senior who's like a well-respected writer right now, and everybody loves him. And then he just sent a couple of lines of feedback that this can be written over a weekend, something like that, and 2-3 lines. And I was like, why would you say that? And
that's a bit harsh.
And I was actually considering ki, well, should I pursue this as a career, because
Oh no.
yeah, matlab ye काफी, And I was like quite happy with it. And then I read that script like 2-3 years back, and I was like, it's not very good, but I can still identify the problems, and this is fixable. Like,
Right.
probably if I have to, I don't want to do it now, but if I want to do it like a couple of years, this is a good draft to begin with. And I don't know, maybe he was reading a lot of stuff, and I've learned over the last few years that if your feedback is not improving the project, then don't give it. Don't give your feedback, because there is only one purpose of a feedback, is to better that thing.
Got it.
If you're not doing that, then don't give your feedback to the writer.
Right.
So I'll come to that feedback wala thing later, but I think you get that feedback from a lot of people, like people who you respect, and kind of figure out what is working, what is not working. The other thing, of course, is to present it to an audience. Like, for example, like for me, it was theater. Like, I used to do a lot of plays in college and that. And for the first time, I realized that, so when you're starting out, you kind of mimic the voices of the writers that you like. And I know, अच्छा ये तो उसके format में joke है, उसके format में joke है. This is a filler joke which I've done, and then ये उसके format, अच्छा this was something like this was done in Seinfeld, या ये Friends वाला. So these will work. And then you see audience laughing at all those jokes, and then suddenly your joke comes and people laugh the loudest, and you realize, oh, is this working? Because I thought this is like, I do this thing all the time. And then in the sketches of TVF earlier. So again, it started with aping a lot of like SNL and all of that. YouTube mein, the kind of stuff that I used to like. But then I suddenly realized that one joke that I had written started working, like, which was completely from me. That got the audience's attention the most. And then you realize, okay, I don't need to do that maybe. And then, of course, with comedy specifically, after working in like 3-4 years, you realize, okay, this is funny, this is not funny. Objectively, like you speak to any comedian, they'll be able to say, oh, this is funny, this is not funny. Yeah, this is okay, I don't know. They try it out and then they'll realize, okay. So that sense develops after you start writing a few years. But yeah, in a broader sense, of course, nobody knows. That you have to keep narrating it to people and keep figuring it out. कि ये क्या है. But हाँ, with time and with good feedback from people around you, you can probably understand what's working and what's not working.
I got you. Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's like you've developed that understanding of what to take as feedback.
Yeah, and the other thing also is a lot of times, like this happened to me, so I'm guessing this happens to a lot of younger writers also, is that when somebody doesn't like an idea, you feel personally responsible. You feel that, oh, matlab, I am bad if he's saying that this script is bad. But what everybody's saying that this script or this scene or this idea is bad. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean that this thing is not working. It can be fixed.
Yep.
It can be fixed and it'll become a good idea. Like only these 3-4 people are not going to see the film or the show or the sketch that you're making. It's going to be thousands of people that are going to see it. So just rework on it and make it better. That's it.
Fair. And in terms of one of the most common compliments that I've heard, in terms of people who have worked with you and who've met you, is that you just know how to give feedback,
Oh, great.
Yeah, how
Thank you.
considerate you are towards writers. And as you mentioned, right, as professionally also, so many people just don't know how to give feedback.
Yeah.
And case in point, somebody who just told you this could have been written over a weekend, right? It's such a harsh thing to say to a writer who must have spent months writing something, right? What is your process of reading something? One. Two, what are the, if I were to put it this way, what is the character that you're playing when you're giving feedback?
See, I'm not playing a character or such, so you have to see it objectively, okay? So the thing I do usually is that, see, 1 out of 2 times a script is terrible. Like, कि ये इसका कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. So then I simply write कि यार, this is not for us, thank you for sending, जो भी ऐसे वाला. Because if you can't say anything good about it, then don't say anything at all. पहली चीज़ तो वो. If you feel it's terrible, like इसका कुछ नहीं होगा, तो फिर just keep it aside and say कि sorry, this is not for us. That's it. If you feel कि अरे there are a few things which I like, so then start with those things. Always start with what you liked about the script. Like there has to be one scene or one character or the jokes or something that has worked. So just say कि just start with those. कि okay, this really worked for me. What didn't work for me were like, and always use the good things as a reference for the bad things. See, I found this bad because see how well you've done this. This does not reflect in this scene. you've just established that this character, say, I don't know, this character loves his mother, say for example, and then he says something to his mother in this scene. This is not coherent, this is not consistent with his character. So can we do something कि ये चीज़ दोनों में से एक चीज़ कोई change होनी चाहिए, and I think this works, so can you rework on that? And so I'll be very honest कि a lot of times people say कि oh we have to respond to writers with brutal honesty. I think they focus on the brutality bit a little bit more than honesty.
Well put, actually.
You can be very honest and you can say this is so. Just saying कि this is bad or this is not good yaar. The same thing you're saying, but one thing is like कि this is not working.
Yeah.
When you're saying this is, so again, being very careful about what words to use.
Yep.
So not good and saying कि यार this scene can be improved. And I was really disappointed here because you set it up so well and the payoff is so weak. Why don't you do something like this? So just and like working with the writer as a co-writer, like working with them as like this is I feel is a problem. Like this is like first you isolate the problems कि ये 4-5 बड़ी problems लग रही है मुझे. Let's focus on this. What do we do to fix this? Like he has an idea, and then a lot of times writers will give you something bizarro, and then stopping them and saying, you know, this is not consistent with your own vision. What also happens is when you give feedback, everybody is trying to make that film or that show that they want to make. You have to first identify what the writer is trying to say and whether he's done a good job in saying that. And I think like somebody who's half good also knows ki yaar ye what he's saying is correct. This scene is not working that well. And I've seen even with like hardcore big directors, professionals, they will let you say that this is not working. Oh, okay. Why is it not working? And then you tell them this, and they'll just come back and say, yeah, you're right. You're right, we need to fix this.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I've worked with a lot of filmmakers who are pretty big names and they're very honest and very upfront about it. Ki, yeah, so what do you think we should do? Okay. Or sometimes they'll say, see, I know this is bad, but ye chalega. And you respect that. Ki this guy has a clarity ki bhai, he knows ki audience will want this, and then you don't get in their way. Ki haan, matlab it's your personal thing ki shayad haan, matlab I don't know if we should go this loud. No, trust me, ye chalega. And then you're like, you okay. Fine, I trust you on that.
Got it. Is there a specific incident that you recall where somebody shared a draft with you and you gave a very constructive feedback, very politely, as you mentioned, and it was constructive, but you knew at the back of your mind something is not working there, okay? But that feedback was taken so well, and that writer just turned it around. Is there a specific incident or event like that happened?
This happened, like in TVF, this happened a lot, even in the shows that we've done where we worked with writers. I think a lot of them most of the time, they've turned it around only. Like even in Home Shanti or even in the shows that we've done at TVF, kai baar, like when we were working with writers. And I think not just me, say for example, Amit or Sami, these people are so good with their directions कि ये direction ले जाते हैं या ये करते हैं. It's so easy to understand a lot of the times that you're like, it's so precise in terms of feedback. You're like, oh, okay. So I'll give you an instance. I don't remember. I'm not able to recall the exact thing that he said. But so it's a script which this thing didn't get made. So it was about a bad guy. We're establishing that typical kind of a bad guy, and he says कि ओ मेरे इतने लोग मरे हैं इस process में, and I need 10 million. So I said, but बात 5 million की थी. No, I'm asking 8 million because 5 million is for me and 3 million is for the people that died. And then Amit stopped and said, but one second, but we want to show him as a bad guy. Now, why are we giving him a good character? Ki apne logo ka care karta. He's the worst guy. So why are we giving him a positive trait? He can ask 10 million and you can actually have them screw them over and take their money. That is a bad guy. Why is this bad guy? Why are you establishing a positive trait? Aisa nahi ki you're playing on it. Kuch वैसे वाला. This guy is hardcore, proper, bad, evil, जो भी है. On that side of the spectrum. So why do you need something like this? And you easily understand कि हाँ ये बात तो सही है. And while writing, you think, oh, this is a cool thing that the bad guy can say. But yeah, it was not that layered a character. तो फिर क्यों डाल रहे हो?
Got it. And on the flip side, was there any instance where somebody shared a draft with you and with all kindness you gave very good feedback, hoping it will be constructive, but that feedback wasn't taken well and that writer really withdrew? Is there any instance like
Yeah, this happens. This also happens a lot. Like a lot of things are paged or you're reading and you tell them ki this is what I feel the problem is and please fix it. And instead of fixing that, they'll fix everything else. They'll change everything else except no, but I believe in it. I believe this will work.
Right.
And then there's nothing that you can argue us case mein na ki I'm saying ki yaar, this you're telling me that he loves this girl, which is why he goes to the restaurant, but then he meets an old friend and starts talking to him. This is not consistent. You've set up a desire ki वो उस लड़की को मिलने गया है. Oh no, but that scene with that friend will be about this. This will be about that. This is like that scene from that film. I'm like, I don't want to watch that scene from that film, which is not consistent with your own stuff that you've set up. So
Right.
a lot of people don't realize, don't understand, don't take it that well, don't understand कि हाँ ये objective problem है. I'm not, and again, I think like while giving feedback, another thing that is remove yourself from the equation completely. It's just you as a fixer, as a consultant trying to fix things in the script.
That's interesting. Now, I'm going to throw a question which is on the same lines, but I also want to understand because from your perspective, because you were vertically integrated on so many levels before, and now you're working with other collaborators, other companies, right? Platforms, distributors, right? Was there any instance where you're trying to push for something or pitch something, and the person on the other side who's signing the check perhaps is just not able to get that intention that you're trying? But you believe in it a lot, you know? So how did you handle that conversation if there was any instance like that?
Such a thing, I mean, it's either a yes or a no. I mean, there are things like these always happen on a micro scale.
Right.
Like they don't like a scene. And I think 9 out of 10 times you can convince them. Or it's about casting. So things like, or it's about the edit, ki yaar ye scene we don't want, we want this scene before this, or, lengthwise remove it. So all of that conversations keep happening.
Got it.
You have to like accept, like even if you feel ki daso feedback nahi work karenge hamare liye, you kind of have to take 1 or 2 from their end just to make them feel ki haan chalo we are listening to you.
Got it.
But I think most of the time, like at least initial level pe, script level pe, at least like we worked a lot with Netflix, mostly sahi feedback aaya tha. And it's also because OTTs are also the first people you narrate to.
Got it.
They're also the first audience who's responding. So it's always interesting to hear what they say. And usme ekada person will be there in the room who'll say something stupid, but that you have to kind of accept ki haan ye to hoga hi.
Right.
That happens in every narration or every room that you're in. So again, I think if you have a great reason and you're not doing anything out of indulgence, like everything is logical and all of that, I don't think they have a problem with it. Of course, sometimes OTTs also use a language that you don't understand. Like, is this clickable or is this all of that? And you don't know the answer, so you keep quiet and you said, I don't know. I've said things like that कि मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा कि क्या बोल रहे हो आप. एक बार मुझे थोड़ा सा हिंदी में बताओ आप क्या बोलना चाहते हो. तो all of that you kind of understand कि हाँ मतलब they have some problem which they are also not being able to articulate.
Got it.
So over a period of time you figure out कि हाँ this is the problem, maybe I'll find a solution or convince them otherwise.
That's interesting. Which reminds me of one last question which I want to draw upon the comparison between YouTube and OTTs is that in the world of YouTube and social media, generally speaking, you have to constantly create those dopamine hits and that engagement needs to keep up, right? With long form, the audience is slightly more lenient because they give you the time to build your story, right? But today in 2023-24, how does that play out in your writing? Do you hold yourself back towards, okay, if I were writing this for YouTube, I would add a joke after the third line or whatever, right? I don't know the brass tacks of it, but versus writing a show for Netflix where you can actually take your time to build a character or a scene. So do you hold yourself back or do you have a certain way that you work?
I've never thought ki haan matlab we'll add a joke every third line, all of that. But there, I think increasingly, because I don't know, because of reels or because of whatever, everybody wants you to like move it at a faster pace. It's like why T20 is becoming popular.
Right.
So like what you're saying, even for Netflix, even for Amazon or even for Hotstar, everybody keeps telling you pace up karo.
Got it.
Pace up rakho, all of that. So even if I'm writing for an OTT platform, I don't have that leeway ki, oh, I'll take 2 scenes to build a character. No, you have to like slow burn बोल देते हैं. And I don't really, I never thought कि कुछ चीज़ें slow burn है. But then you read in the reviews, oh, it's a great slow burn show. And you're like, oh, I never intended it to be a slow burn show. But because this is the pace that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
Like when you watch an HBO show या कुछ वैसा, this is the pace that it goes on. Maybe I thought I was quicker, I was faster than that. But things have changed so drastically over the last few years that people don't want to indulge. So you have to kind of figure out a way to write scenes only where something big should happen every few minutes. Otherwise, people will just switch off. Ye hai, and I think all the platforms just want people to keep watching. They want the retention high. They want so they want something to happen, which is why murder mysteries are so popular. Yeah, thrillers. We keep complaining कि crime dramas या crime thrillers क्यों चल रहा है, क्योंकि लोग देखते हैं. You show a murder in the beginning of the episode, people will stick around for 8 episodes to figure out who the murderer is. Even if the murderer is they find a convoluted way to find some killer at the end, people will say कि क्या खराब show था, but they've given 8 hours to the platform. So platforms don't care about whether it's a good show or a bad show. They just want people to see as much as they can on their platform. So the watch time is all they care about. So, which is why certain genres become more popular, which is why you don't see romance at all.
Right.
You don't see a romantic show at all. But then you realize कि हो रहा है ना, कोरिया में देख रहे हैं ना लोग. Like across the world, people are watching K-dramas, which is mostly a boy and a girl in different setups. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि you can't do that. It's just that I think probably we need a couple of shows to break the mold and go there, and then suddenly everybody will go in that direction.
Yeah.
So it's just that I think we are at a time where even writers have to, so the test match era is gone. We have to live in a
So well
T20.
put.
Yeah. We have to be in a T20 mindset कि हाँ कुछ ना कुछ होते रहना चाहिए.
Yep.
That's the
So that brings me to a question, which is more like, okay, if you were to give a tip to a young writer, most education around screenwriting is largely rooted in films pre-digital era, right? So they have their own grammar of telling.
Correct.
But if you were to say, okay, one tool that comes to your mind to turn your old school but good writing into a more fast-paced digital friendly writing, is there a tool that comes to your mind?
Like
Writing
a very
tool.
specific advice would be when you're writing scenes, enter as late as possible and exit as early as possible.
Yeah.
So for
Very classic
example, so for example, if I was to enter a room and say, where is my money? And then if I beat you up and take the money away, then start with the first punch itself. And then during the conversation, no, ki I'm here for the money, and then take the money. And the moment I touch, the moment you point out ki ye wahan pe, I see the briefcase and the scene should end.
Right.
As basic as that. The other thing probably is like be very cognizant if the scene is going above 2 pages. There has to be a very specific reason why it's going over 2 pages. Try and keep the scenes shorter.
And you would say that for films as well?
For films, definitely. For films, I think like the one thing which I did while writing films, and I read a lot of Hindi film scripts, and I realized that like even for Dangal, no scene, like apart from very few specific scene, like it almost plays out like 30 seconds, 40 seconds a scene. That is the pace of that film, because they have to establish so much. They have to move through time so fast. At times, it almost runs like a montage at times.
Right.
So you realize ki, oh, acha, they've done one conversation across different setups just to keep the pace up. So like that is again a great tool to do, where you have like one great conversation, at least keep the characters moving. Or, you have that conversation, like even Dangal has a great example with Amir Khan and Sakshi Tanwar are talking about whether they want to send the girls, they want to train the girls to be wrestlers. So they have a conversation in the morning when he is washing the scooter. Cut to when they're having lunch. cut to when they are sleeping. So it's the same conversation which is continuing. It's the same basically arguments that are happening, but it's I think 1.5 pages of 4 or 5 different setups.
Got it.
So that just keeps the pace up and you are completely engaged कि ये क्या चल रहा है. So
There's something stimulating every few
Yeah.
seconds. Got it. That's interesting. That's really good to know. Okay, now let's talk about Posham Pa. Okay. What was the idea behind the company? And we have to hear the story behind the name.
okay.
How did you feel like, okay, this is what you want to do next? What was the moment where you're like, okay, I want to set up my production company? Versus, say, I want to set up a new YouTube distribution or something like that.
Okay, so when we had quit TVF, तो वैसा कुछ सोचा नहीं था कि we'll come and we'll form a company वैसे वाला. It's just I think there was a call and all of us said कि ऐसा कुछ सोचना है क्या, because I think when we collectively work there might be we might be more powerful together than of course all of us will find some work here and there, but do you guys think we should give it a shot? And I think everybody agreed and said ki, yeah, let's try. And the idea of course distribution network was never the thought when I entered TVF. Okay, so the thing was we have a channel. This is the camera. The camera is pretty cheap. This is a room. These are 5-6 people. Go make stuff.
Nice.
That's about it. And because चलो ठीक है थोड़े बहुत पैसे आ जाएंगे because of brands and all. Great, I'll do it for a year or two. And then the idea was कि this is the backup. I'll write a film script और शायद कुछ हो जाए 2-3 साल में. But this thing only became so big. So distribution network and all of that happened later when there was about the team grew from 6-7 people to 15 to 30. And then you realize, we can make more videos and we can make shows. And then the whole thing, a lot of people gave ideas कि ये बना लो, OTT बना लो, कुछ बीच में वो भी हुआ था थोड़ी देर. But I think what everybody connected with was this thought of freedom that you can make, like we are talking about the new age content that came. It was also when we used to do parody and spoofs, which is why when TVF and AIB were working. So this was a new voice of a completely new generation who had stuff to उससे पहले TV पे वही आता था, सास बहू shows आते थे, films भी मासी वो बनता था. This was like a third medium where you can kind of make fun of those things as well.
Yep.
कोई consequence नहीं है, and young people talking about all of these. So I think
Those were the days.
Yeah, those were the days actually where you can get away with anything.
Yeah.
And you didn't realize कि हाँ ये चला जाएगा. You thought ये तो ऐसे ही रहेगा. And you could see कि US में ये हो रहा है 30-40 साल से, और अब तो US में भी काफ़ी कम हो गया. There are things that you can't say there also. And I think that part was where you were all of us were focused on. Distribution network, and when that actually started happening, then वो feel हुआ कि maybe ये सही जगह है ही नहीं हमारे लिए, वैसे वाला हो गया थोड़ा सा. But when we moved out, I think the idea was कि यार we just don't want to do comedy slice of life ये. We are capable of doing a lot more, तो वो करते हैं, and let's make it in a way that we want to make. And of course OTTs, all of the OTTs were very fairly responsive and said कि yeah, let's work और वैसे वाला. And we kind of pitched, and there were a few ideas which everyone liked, and we started working. और वही I think it's been 3.5 years roughly now. And it's going pretty well. And I think that space that we from parodies to shows to slightly slice of life drama to hardcore survival drama to probably next will be action thrillers and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1-2 साल लगेगा वही, it took us I would say 3 years to do Kaala Paani. So probably it'll take that amount of time till we come out with something which is even bigger in terms of scale and size. So that's the idea. That's where we want to go, and not just ऐसा big things. I'm saying horror also. I'm saying a small thriller also. So all of that we want to explore.
You can now cast a wider net in terms of the genres that you can pick up.
Correct.
Which potentially you couldn't do with, say, a TVF because they looked at you for specific genres.
Yeah. And I think once a brand becomes popular for something, people want them to do the same thing. And once that becomes financially lucrative, you also cannot explore beyond that.
Yep.
So I think that's the idea with this, that even when we are starting only, we want to go out and do a lot of different stuff so that you're not pigeonholing us into कि ये करते हैं ये लोग.
Got it. So it almost sounds to me, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, there is a little bit of genre fatigue.
that you may be?
Of course, yeah, not a little bit, a lot of genre fatigue. Yeah.
Got it. But we know for a fact that the industry also kind of typecasts you in terms of the genres you can do, right? And guess what? Your third project with Posham Pa is a survival drama, which is done so well and it's so well written. But between, breaking out of your, comedy, like slice of life space to picking up survival drama, what were the challenges that you faced?
So, internally, I mean, the people I worked with, they knew that ऐसा कुछ है नहीं कि ये सिर्फ कॉमेडी कर सकता है या ये. So there were a lot of ideas which we were discussing. This was just happened to be something जो कि right time at the right place and this just got greenlit. And I think the challenge was mostly, I mean, going to the specifics of Kaala Paani, the challenge was just to handle something of this scale. Scale से मेरा budget मतलब नहीं है. Scale से मेरा मतलब है the scale of the story.
Right.
It's so big and it was also like there was no reference for a pandemic show post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Like if you see the pandemic shows or pandemic films which are pre-pandemic, they are mostly sci-fi. They are categorized into that sci-fi. Just the Kaala Paani, nobody called, like there were a few people who called it sci-fi, but everybody feels कि ये हो सकता है. But there's no bacteria like that, and this never, I mean, hopefully never happen in Andamans, but everybody knows कि ये हो सकता है. So that's a very different space. And even like when I had imagined Kaala Paani like 10-12 years back, जब ये thought आया था, I had also seen Contagion और मुझे भी
10 years back, huh?
Yeah. So 10 to, I think, I'll tell you, 2008, 2011, 12 का idea ये.
Oh, wow.
But that time was just कि the metaphor was there कि Kaala Paani and there was this water-based कुछ infection फैलेगा अंडमान्स में, which is, so that basic premise was there, but I was always looking at it like a sci-fi medical thriller, like Contagion and all of that. When COVID happened, you realized कि oh, ये तो human story है. This is a story about man versus nature. And remember, COVID के time पे हम बात करते हैं humans are the virus, yeah, and then everybody forgot and just moved on.
We're back to normal.
Yeah, so even like the reason for setting it up in 2027 was also कि यार COVID का impact तो रहेगा कुछ साल. इतनी जल्दी लोग नहीं भूल जाएंगे, but लोग 2022 में भूल गए थे. So that is one of the things that we were kind of struggling with. And you're writing a show a pandemic show while the pandemic is going on.
Exactly.
So like the writers room physically met 3 or 4 times over a period of I think 8-9 months. We met just 3-4 times. And second wave हो रहा था. While we are doing stuff like this, actually family mein there were deaths happening. So parents were getting sick. So we actually abandoned for 1.5 months, and because during second wave everybody was getting sick, so I had to go visit my parents. My in-laws got infected. Same with everybody. Somebody's father got infected or वैसे वाला. So that was really...
It was brutal.
It was brutal, and you were kind of writing that. So that actually वो 1-1.5-2 महीना तो काफी हिल गए थे. क्योंकि when we started, it was like 2020 का end. So you felt कि अच्छा, the worst is over.
Yeah.
अब तो क्या ही होगा, मतलब ठीक है, lockdowns and all of that, you got used to it. But you didn't know कि ये आने वाला है. The second wave that happened.
And it was a 14-month journey, right? November
2020 to Feb
23.
23.
Yeah.
Correct.
And April, I think you guys started shooting, right?
We started shooting April. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. April.
It's crazy because when I started watching the show, immediately I was like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, wait, this is too real to watch at this point for a second, right?
Yeah, I know.
But then that's where the magic of writing comes in, where the characters pull you into the show, and now you don't care about your experience. You want to know what happens to the characters.
Also, while we were discussing the show, now we didn't want to, like, the idea was not कि हम pandemic porn नहीं बना रहे. We don't need to remind people of कि ये सारा चीज हो रहा है. We consciously want you to see it from a human perspective.
Yep.
Like, this is a very different thing from COVID. We don't want you to relive your COVID memories. We want you to be cautious about what we're doing to the environment. ये clear था शुरू से कि we are not banking on. So COVID references, I think there's one which we also put during the edit again, because काफ़ी strong एक feedback आया था यार somebody should mention COVID at least in one of the conversations.
Yeah.
But we didn't go there only कि we didn't want people to relive that. Of course we knew कि pandemic और ये सारे बोलने से थोड़ा बहुत तो होगा ही, but let's not do extra and kind of mine those memories. वो नहीं करते हैं.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I can only, like, when I was watching, I could only imagine if I'm feeling that just momentarily, even though you're not deliberately going there, what you guys must have been going through in terms of developing, right? It must have been crazy. And what I really love about that show is how, first of all, Ashutosh Gowarkar, right? You got such a legendary man to do such an important role that was so brilliantly casted. And the fact that he's actually, for a change, a person of authority shown in a real human sense, and that line really stuck with me, where it's like, okay, there are no right decisions at this point. It's just going to be less of bad decision or worse decision that you'll make, right? And then the whole trolley problem that kind of plays out throughout the show, it's so brilliantly put, right? What I want to understand is that thematically, and it's such a thematically resonant show with each episode plus the entire story arc, at what point did you arrive at the theme? Like, okay, this is what the show is about. Or was that something that was clear in your head from the get-go?
No, it wasn't clear like absolutely in the beginning, but like after discussing like for a month, all of us felt that this is a man versus nature show. This is like I said कि initially शुरू तो वैसे किया था कि sci-fi कुछ mystery सा है, but then when we started discussing and we wanted to make it more human, we started discussing like Santosh's track or Chiru's track or that, and then you realize कि नहीं, it's about humans and it's actually the villain of the show is nature. And in real life it's the other way around कि nature is the victim of what we do. So what if we reverse that? What if we kind of reverse, and this is almost like the pandemic is almost like a weapon of nature which is kind of killing humans, and we'll realize it when it kills the characters that we like. And of course वो वाला तो था ही कि if it's about nature, it also has to be about evolution. So all of those characters, all the characters in the show will have a big transformation by the time the season ends.
Got it.
So these two things were very clear, like within I think within a month's time.
That's interesting. One of the things that really stood out for me was that, as you said, which is the character arcs. Like there are certain major character arcs that are happening, but from a television writing perspective or series writing perspective, theoretically you want to go the other way, right? You want the character's arc to be slightly subtle so that you have a larger runway to cover across seasons, right? So was there a point of negotiation with that, or was it clear from the get-go that you need to have?
No, we were very sure कि ये होना चाहिए. And again, like that anticipation, like I was saying कि again television writing has also changed.
Yeah.
Like seasons no longer have 24 episodes.
Yep.
They have 6 episodes, 8 episodes, and now 8 is also on the higher side right now. So from the reason why I realized that a lot of shows are put like one season is season का वो करता है ना part 1, part 2. There's a reason कि people probably cannot watch more than 4.5-5 hours at one go.
Oh, wow.
So this is the ideal length of a season which I think the networks are looking at right now.
Which is 8 episodes at best.
8 also might be a little bit more. So 6 and 4 hours I think is the ideal time right now. And I think 2 years from now,
It'll be even lesser.
I am guessing the shows that come out will not be longer than 4 hours.
Oh,
So
wow.
it'll actually be 2 films ka
Is that
season.
why you had to cut down one episode from 8 to
No, that was purely because of the budget reasons only.
Got it, okay.
And that was also because कि यार वो एक कुछ cyclone of the century had come to Andaman, so our entire shoot schedule went up for a toss. So
Got it.
there's a reason कि हाँ, and thankfully we were well organized, so we could do it in like इसीलिए Feb गया, वरना at least 12 महीने में हो जाता.
Fair.
But yeah, we
Fair.
could do that because we had that. We were fairly organized in terms of writing and tracks.
Got it. One other thing that I want to talk to you about, actually, we'll make this a two-part conversation, a two-part question, okay? I'll answer this first after you answer it. Which is your most memorable / favorite scene in terms of what you wrote and how it came out? And then I'll tell you mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Memorable scene in terms of how I wrote it and what came out. Just give me a second, na?
Yeah, take your time.
So two scenes come to mind and I can't choose between any of them. One would be the breakup scene in Pictures.
Okay.
And the other would be Gargi's death scene in Kaala Paani.
Kargi's oh, right, of course. Yeah.
Santosh and Gargi's death scene.
Yeah.
These two scenes, like the breakup scene was also because when I see it now, I feel कि यार थोड़ा छोटा कर सकते थे यहाँ पे वहाँ पे. But I feel the way it was kind of written like even Naveen's speech in Pictures and Naveen and Manvi's breakup in the last episode. Both the scenes were written like in a couple of hours, not more than that. Like the speech scene, though, I think I wrote it the night before, and everybody was like, "Yeah, oh, Yari, you did it," and I was like, "हाँ, but पता नहीं है." I didn't consider it as a feat till the time I realized कि अच्छा writer's block जैसा भी कुछ होता है.
Yeah.
कि but then I think I was so like I was saying कि shows मतलब episodes were coming out and people were responding, so I knew the pitch exactly, so it wasn't a struggle at all. And I really liked that breakup scene, and I think I had a fight with Amit also कि ये थोड़ा realistic करना है, and he was not. I think ये breakup का पता नहीं, I am not seeing it, you right. And once I wrote it and he really liked it. I think the actors also liked it, and I think I'm really happy with what both the actors did there. Gargi's death scene was again like it pays off. वो Garjan वाले scene से tied up है and all of that started happening. And I think like Santosh for me is kind of the heart of the show. And I really connected with his character. He kind of comes from the same region as I come from. And I really could feel the pain of this scene for some reason. So I cried every time while I was writing it, when I saw the edit, when the show came out, and even when I was subtitling, I was crying when I was watching it. And I realized कि ये हर बार कैसे हो रहा है, ये हर बार कैसे hit कर रहा है. So now I can laugh about it, but उस वक्त I don't know why कुछ genuine सा connect हुआ था उस scene में.
It's beautiful scene. Specifically, the one that is obviously fresher in my mind is the scene with Gargi and Santosh. Okay, let's talk about the writing of it for a bit.
Okay.
What was the beat? Like, obviously, Gargi has to die was very clear as the first level premise for that scene, right? But how did you take it from there? Like, I want to understand behind the scenes of the writer's room. Okay, I'm guessing there must be an index card. Gargi
Correct.
Then from there, how do you get Santosh to that level, or emotionally that he's willing to do that, or was it something that were you questioning that Santosh can do this or not, or was there a question like, do you want to even kill Gargi in the first place after coming up with that idea? So just tell us the secrets over there.
So like I said, कि Santosh के transformation arc के लिए, like one big point was Gargi's death, and that's where he kind of takes over her role of the guardian, of being the guardian of the family. So we knew कि once Gargi dies, he'll take his first step towards Breaking Bad wala thing is he steals a bad person's boat. Then he'll do in the show later on, he'll do something which will hurt a good person, which is like leaving a sick old man in the middle of the street. But you don't mind because you feel he has bigger things to achieve. Till the time he's almost ready to commit murder of one of your favorite characters. So to get that first step of a guy, that is the bigger thing कि जो कि पानी भी नहीं मांग पा रहा है. For him to steal a boat, we'll have to kind of establish the boat guy is bad, so you don't feel, as an audience, you don't feel bad कि हाँ इसने पैसे ले लिए और अब boat भी नहीं दे रहा. Like he takes a lot of money, and then so you're prepared कि यार you want that guy to stand up for himself. You've had a scene जहाँ पे he's kind of not able to talk to, he's practicing what he'll say to Chiru when he comes. So you see कि this is a poor guy, he's not able to stand up for himself. With Gargi, we had cracked this Garjan wala thing that happened like a few months back, where she's not written the spelling correctly. And we really liked that moment where Santosh turns around and says कि Garjan वो नहीं होता जिसको spelling आता है, Garjan का meaning पता होना चाहिए. This was cracked. This was on paper. This was on the index card, like you said. when I was doing that, this thing came very naturally, very organically, where Santosh just goes and says कि तुम क्यों वो दोनों का गार्जियन हो, तुम हमारा भी तो गार्जियन हो. And that really makes me cry every time. कि this poor guy who's saying to his wife कि यार तू मेरी गार्जियन है यार, मतलब you take care of me, and if you die how will I take care of the kids. तो वो वाली चीज. And then the another layer of the scene is that Gargi is consoling Santosh.
Yeah.
Gargi is the one who's dying, but she's consoling Santosh. So we really wanted to create a very strong character in Gargi जो कि मर रही है but वो उसको console कर रही है. There was one bit which we removed because everybody was like भाई तुम क्या पागल कर दोगे यार रुला दे. Where she says कि वो घर जाना, घर पे ना अलमारी है, वो कुछ वो साड़ी के नीचे थोड़े से पैसे रखे हुए हैं वो बच्चों के उसके लिए. And like everybody was like यार ये कितने level. And the scene was also getting a little long, so we had to remove that chunk, but I like that part also.
Yeah, I think it was in Script Nama's podcast where you had mentioned that you had to cut a part of the
Yeah,
thing
so
of
it was this part which
Yeah.
we really liked.
By the way, great interview. Shout out to those guys. Please check out that episode. Great interview. Super cool insights with the entire from the industry.
That was great.
Go on.
So yeah, and then so what happens is then there was this one like a writer wala line which Gargi says, holds his hand, and then you cut to of course where he's sitting, watching his hand, वैसे वाला कुछ था. Now in the edit, what the editor did, he showed it to me, he showed it to us and said कि मैंने कुछ किया है देखो. And then what he did was when she holds his hand, he made a cut mid-sentence. And then you cut to his hand. And that was not intended. There was like some line which was kind of supposed to transition. And that death is so sudden that I felt he was like कि सर ये तो कुछ अच्छा हो गया. And I still remember कि तो बहुत कुछ something magical happened in that moment. And I think both Samir and I thought कि यार ये तो बहुत सही है कुछ. So that death, and I remember my wife watching it and she was like कि मर गई क्या ये, मर गई क्या.
Oh.
And I realized कि हाँ ये work तो कर रहा है.
This is perfect. Yeah.
This is working. So when you work with talented people, they'll give you something which you don't anticipate ki, of course that would also have worked but not as good as this. This sudden cut there mid sentence, and I think he also did it accidentally, which he said later ki wo ho gaya galti se. And then I realized ki, and then he was like ki dekho ye kitna sahi hai.
Nice.
But
this is so good, right? And I feel like Gargi's death was almost imminent, right? You knew, you saw it coming. This is the tragedy waiting for him, right? But then still, that expectation versus anticipation, how do you work with that and still make the scene work? I think it's beautiful. And I'm going to tell you my favorite scene of the entire show is Chiru's acceptance, like, okay, मैंने पूरे life सिर्फ लिया है, अब मेरी देने की बारी है.
Yeah, that's also a great scene.
That was so beautiful, especially because Chiru as a character is almost a character who's not likable from the start of the show. Like, you don't like him so much. You find him interesting, ठीक है, ऐसा बंदा होते हैं, interesting है, he's a little selfish, looking out for himself. But then him learning about his ancestry, so to speak, and coming to this point where he's now ready to give up his own life. What really stood out for me, and I'm very curious to know, is that was one that the intention as the arc from day one, or was it one of those things when you're writing the character and you feel like maybe he could have this kind of a transformation?
Yeah.
That's one question. Second, what happened behind the scenes of that while shooting it? Because it's such a strong emotional scene from Chiru's perspective, and to get that performance out. And I've heard from countless people, in fact in one of your other interviews also you mentioned that you discussed that how so much space was given to actors on the set to do their own thing. So I'm just curious to know how that panned out.
Okay, so the transformation was decided that he is going to be from somebody. In fact, the kind of things he said, thoda sa hame kaatna pad gaya. So he was already like a Oraka hater from the very beginning.
Oh wow, okay.
So he was like dead against the Orakas. Also, this was important because we never wanted the audience to feel ki because his mother has died, he's against Swarakaas. No, he was against Swarakaas from the very beginning. He was like, ये पता नहीं ये अनपढ़ लोग ये pipe तोड़ दिया वैसे वाला. The kind that's his journey from the beginning. You see him telling Gargi also शुरू में कि पहले bread biscuit देता था तो ये लोग dance करके भी दिखाता था. So all of that, so he's kind of like bordering almost on racist towards the Urakas till he realizes कि oh my birth mother was an Uraka. So even after realizing that, the idea was कि he's not transforming because of his ancestry. He's transforming because something his friend said कि तू लेता है बस. And that line, I think when Nimisha was writing the third episode, she came up with that. And we immediately caught on to that कि हाँ. And she had written it as a part of that scene. And I felt उस time पे, I think it was Amit या somebody, I think pointed it out कि what if this is the scene for his end, like his transformation will be complete when he gives कि when Pundi tells him कि तू बस लेता है इससे लिया उससे लिया. So all of that was written. And then what if he is the one who realizes, who says कि मैं हमेशा लिया है अब मैं दे सकता हूँ कुछ. So we always knew that plot wise Chiranjeevi Chiru is useful somewhere, like his body has something which can be used. So what if the CSF, the thing that we wanted to extract is something that can kill this guy and he chooses to sacrifice himself. Like saying ki, and even then he says ki mera maa, he's still calling like Parvati as his mother कि मेरा मम्मी जब मैं जाऊंगा तो मैं उसको फेस पे बोल तो पाऊंगा दिखा तो पाऊंगा कि मैंने कुछ अच्छा किया है. क्योंकि अगर वो और आकाश को करते तो he still considers her as his own mother. तो वो वाला was of course when you write it you know कि you've hit the beats kind of this, like you said कि कब पता चलता है. So when you written पहले draft में मुझे पता था कि of course याद कुछ minor alteration हो सकते हैं but this scene works
but
because
you're there emotionally.
Yeah, you're there emotionally क्योंकि connect भी है. So it wasn't much of a struggle writing it. I think shooting wise like let me just talk about Sukant for a little bit. I think he was like initially भी when we had auditioned and he kind of nailed the performance everything. I think थोड़ा language को लेके मुझे concern था. So I met him and मैंने वो भी बोला था कि I gave him a list of the YouTubers I follow in Andaman and there's a specific way of speaking. And I was just telling him कि वो easily ना थोड़ा सा मुंबईया जैसा लग सकता है. If तो just तो मैंने लिखा है वैसा जो अंडमानी उसी में लिखा है. He said okay I'll follow it. And then I think he saw and then he went out of his way. I think before the shoot 7-8 days he lived with like he went in there. I think जो उसका guide जो था like he was a taxi driver वैसे वाला. So he lived at his place for a week, 8 days. He listened to it. And I think once I went, I think I went on the 3rd or 4th day of shoot. And everybody was praising him. And then you see I was like, he's not following the script. He's actually making it better. So actually the accent that he got, I learned a few things from it. कि हाँ ये मैं next time जब लिखूंगा तो मैं ध्यान रखूंगा. So so I'm not saying method acting है ना, but the accent was so much in his mind that even while having dinner, he used to talk like that. He wasn't like Chiru, he was Sukant, but he was deliberately speaking in that twang with that accent so that he gets it right. And even now I've realized like we're doing something for a season 2 promo, you give him the lines and he'll make it Chiru's. So he can actually do it better than me now. So even if I give him Hindi now, he'll make it his own. So that he's really worked on. And I think all of the actors, like not just Sukant, I think all of the actors are so cooperative. Because we shot in the harshest of conditions and जहाँ पे कुछ नहीं है. मतलब not this scene, there was one scene like you remember Santosh and Chiru are on a boat and we have this beautiful shots of sunrise and all. So these guys had to sit on a boat for 4-5 hours with just 2 bottles of water. कुछ नहीं है वहाँ पे. क्योंकि we can't get them to the shore ना, we have to catch them. तो again all of them were prepared. We had told them कि भाई नहीं मिलेगा, it'll be. So these two on a boat in sun for 4-5 hours in the morning and then again in the evening. They're just sitting there. And of course at that point of time you're like कि पता नहीं क्या shoot कर रहे हैं क्या, ठीक है सुंदर है, but then when it comes together in the end you're like yo wow ये क्या shot है. So I think the cinematography of course is being praised or वो deservedly so.
Yep.
But उस point of time पे you feel कि यार पता नहीं if this will work, are we working too hard on this और वैसा वाला. But yeah.
That's interesting. I really love these moments, especially the magic of filmmaking. Like it speaks so much to the collaborative nature of being in this business. Can I ask you a question in terms of what are the is there any specific feedback, good or constructive, either way, that you received that has like stayed with you till date when you think about feedback about Kaala Paani?
About Kaala Paani?
Yeah.
Oh. Not really. I don't think.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what. So a lot of times people are not able to say what they mean.
Okay.
I think like a few people kind of felt something about like the way जो slow burn से मुझे वो लगा कि people felt it took its own time. Apart from that, honestly, मुझे वैसा कुछ बहुत वैसा नहीं मिला कि कुछ objectively किसी ने वो नहीं बोला कि ये better कर दे. Because I think even reviews and even anybody who's commenting now again reviews are also a piece of content.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
so everybody has to review as early as they can.
Yep.
And this is such a complex show that it takes at least a day or two to register itself fully. Ki you get to there are a few things which will probably come to you when you're by yourself thinking about it later ki अरे हाँ ये तो connect था वहाँ पे. And of course it's a very heavy show, so you can't treat it कि हाँ ये देख के मैं आधे घंटे में review, which is what always happens. We all know how it works. तो ना I don't think objectively anybody kind of understands how complex it is with so many pieces moving. कैसे वो करना है. So in fact I felt कि वो जो appreciation deserving था वो वाली चीज़ का वो कम देख पाए लोग, because again everybody, which I think is happening, which happened from Sunday onwards actually.
Oh, yeah?
Whoever saw it Sunday, Monday, which is I've always noticed it. Like if it's a fairly complex film or a show, the reviews that come out later have some time to dissect it a little bit better, because otherwise तो आप देख के क्या आप तभी के तभी कुछ बोल रहे हो, it doesn't work.
And it comes out.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So that way I think the things that came out later were far more appreciative, and they understood a lot of the things that we kind of did. Feedback wise, yeah, like I said, apart from this, I don't think there's anything else which I thought that यार ये लोगों को लगा. I think everybody I'm hoping like were kind of moved by it.
Fair.
They really understood it, like a large amount of the audience, I would say. Baki to I think I'm very happy with it. And
So I'm
let's
glad.
see.
One question that I have to ask you, and you don't have to get into specific of it. I know it's you have to keep it under wraps. But if you were to tell in very few words what to expect for the second season,
What to expect?
or even hint at it,
No, I think we'll continue from where we left off, of course. We'll see a few new characters, and of course your favorite old ones who are alive.
Nice.
Those who are alive, and not all of them will make it to the end of season 2. Is all I can say. There is going to be again transformation. All of that is going to be. We are probably going to know the meaning of the symbol, the Oraka symbol.
Got it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So इतना ही मैं बोलना चाहूँगा
No,
अभी.
fair. This is great. This is so good. Okay. As we wrap, there's one thing that, if I may request, would you mind doing an invitation of Arnab? But we will.
Do you mind भी समझ में आ गया था मुझे.
But we'll make it interesting. What if Arnab were to give 3 things a writer should keep in mind?
Okay.
And you want a pen?
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, thank you. Just let me just figure out what the 3 things are. Okay.
Yeah, you can look into the camera and do this.
Okay. So first of all, let me tell you, you might have written this script, but this is my script.
No, this is your script, but I'll tell you 3 things to keep in mind. First, try to read something every day or watch something at least to improve your writing. Second thing, whenever you're writing, make sure that there is a piece of your expression in it. And the third thing, when people give you feedback, look for the problems and not for the solutions. That's all.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Biswa, for doing this. I really
Thank you for
appreciate this, and I'm very positive that there's so many insights that you've offered, which any writer at any level could really learn from. And I hope to watch more and more stuff from your end across different genres. I look forward to the action project that you're talking
Thank
about.
you so much.
Awesome.
Lovely talking to you.
I'm glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you so much for listening in. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do subscribe and do let us know in comments if you'd like to cover, like us to cover any topic specifically, or if you'd like us to invite any specific guests. We would love to hear from you. Thank you.